At the T-minus 3-minute mark, tape recorders on board the spacecraft were turned on. These recorders record both voice and data. The engine's now building up to 7.7 million pounds of thrust. We have a launch commit, and we have a liftoff. Moving back. The Saturn V lifting off the power. Alpha pad.
This is WOMM-LP operating out of Burlington, Vermont, 105.9 The Radiator. Good evening, it's the Rocket Shop. I'm your host, Tom Proctor, and with me tonight, it's the legendary band, Death. Hello, guys.
Hey, how are you, man? How you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm so excited to you guys be in the studio. True Vermont legends, or just kind of musical legends in general, really. We usually start with a song, but I wanted to give our audience a little bit of background about you guys. So you literally one of the first punk bands in America from Detroit. Tell me a little bit about your beginnings, where you're from, how you got into punk in the first place, and the quick bio of the band Death.
Well, it's pretty precarious that people call us, the proto-punk band. We appreciate that. I mean, rock historians have labeled us this, and the general music audience has, and I mean, it's something that we accept. At the time when we were making this music in 1974, 1975, man, we were just playing hard driving Detroit rock and roll. I mean, it wasn't really called punk. If you call somebody punk back in 1974, you might have got one or two things, a black eye or a bloody nose. So it was really not a term that had been coined yet for music. But, in retrospect, after so many years, me and my brother Dennis look back on it, and we kind of, analyze even our own music. I guess we were making it a little bit faster and a little bit harder, but our influences was any rock and roll Detroit band's influences at the time. Iggy and the Stooges, MC5, Grand Funk Railroad, Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes, the Rationals, Bob Seger. I mean, we had so many great influences in Detroit that was doing, this kind of really kind of underground, I mean, some of them would break the surface and get on commercial radio. Like Iggy had a big hit with the 1969 thing, and the MC5 every once in a while you'd hear. Of course, Bob Seger, he had a lot of local hits, but for the most part, these were kind of underground bands, I guess, and they did, in retrospect, have that garage sound. So, brother, we were just really just trying to be in line with the rock and roll sound of that time, but we had our own, our own swing to it. And, of course, being naturally an all-black band on the east side of Detroit and all-black community playing this hard-driving rock and roll, we got a lot of rejection. So that might have been the engine that fueled us to drive it, playing harder, faster, and louder.
Well, I was going to say, did that make you more punk? The fact that you were rejected from your own kind of your own area, and especially because you were probably playing slightly different music than what most people were used to. Did that influence you even further?
Well, yeah, it did, because I mean, like you said, being alienated from the rest of the community kind of makes you have different feelings. So, I mean, that probably contributed to the harder, faster thing. But no, we just wanted to do our own thing, man. I mean, we knew what the neighborhood was doing, but we knew what we wanted to do. And, by us trying to have it our way, it made a little friction. So, there was a battle, so to speak.
Well, you guys started out as a funk band, right? And then you pivoted to like hard driving rock and roll. So what was the cause for that pivot? Because I can imagine funk was more in line with your community at the time.
Well, we started we started in '71. It was a band called Rock Fire Funk Express. I mean, we was doing the fusion thing. Everybody was into the fusion thing at the time, so we were trying to fuse everything together, and we were kind of seeking our identity as well. But the funk thing was a good transition actually into rock and roll, because, I mean, at the time you had George Clinton and the Funkadelics, who was borderlining on kind of like the rock, but not, I mean, he was like kind of a borderline between rock and soul. He was a bridge between the rock audience and the soul audience of Detroit. But you had a lot of rock people who liked the Funkadelics, and you had a lot of soul people who liked people who like soul music who like them as well. So, I mean, being in a funk band in Detroit, with what the Funkadelics was doing, it was kind of a natural transition because that was right around the time of Sly and the Family Stone, and all these great groups that was doing this funk thing, and so we were in line with that. But it was a real good bridge right to rock and roll because the world of funk and rock and roll, they kind of were flirting and should I say interacting with each other at the time.
And what were people expecting when they turned up to one of your gigs? What was the kind of feel and atmosphere of a Death gig back in the 70s?
Well, we didn't have a lot of gigs, but it was obvious that people who did show up to our gigs didn't expect what we just left Detroit 2 days ago.
Yeah.
2 days ago, and we played at a place where we played a long time ago, and they literally kicked us out.
Yeah.
Okay, because it was when factory workers get together after work, they want booze and they want blues. Okay, and when we got invited to one of their cabarets, and everybody's all buzzied up and they're expecting some of that blues stuff. And when they looked at us, our first song was Jumpin' Jack Flash. And, we played our thing and played another song and played another song. And you could literally hear a pin drop in the place. And the place was packed. And, when we got, done our final crescendo and left the stage, it was just one guy who came up to the stage holding both his ears going, "You're too loud." And that was the summation of our gig. How many years ago was that? 30-something years ago? And we just left this place yesterday, day before yesterday, and it was a whole new scene, whole nother scene.
Yeah.
I mean, they was doing this kind of Halloween party. They called it a bazaar, and it was bizarre. But, I told Bob, I was just standing outside the place. I said, the last time we played here, they kicked us out on our ears. Now they calling us back to play, and the place is just chock full of people.
I'm guessing the crowd were a little bit more receptive this time around.
Well, they knew what to expect, and they got what they expected. The first crowd didn't.
Well, I think for the sake of our audience, I think we should play one of your tracks so they kind of know what to expect themselves. So, do you guys mind introducing it, and we'll let it play?
Okay.
Well, yeah, this is the one that kind of brought it all back for us. I mean, we released this song in 1976, recorded it in 1974, 75, and we only released like 500 records of this, and who would have known that this, little obscure 45 would end up in the new Smithsonian Museum. So, I mean, it's really the one that kind of brought it all back for us, because this is the one that Ben Blackwell heard on Chocolate and went seeking it out, and the record collectors and the rock historians kind of came out of the woodwork and said, "Hey, what is this? Where's this band? Who are these guys?" And here we are tucked away in Vermont playing reggae music. And they came and they found us, and, the rest is history. So I really have to say thank to all the internet scours and all the guys who love, and the people who love vinyl music, who constantly search the internet looking for these wonderful things of the past, because they kind of, they help to bring us back right into the forefront.
All right, well, can't wait to give this a listen. So, take it away, Bob.
1, 2, 3, now!
the race at the top because they wanna be boss. They don't care who they step on as long as they get along. Politicians in my eyes. They could care less about you, they could care less about me. As long as they are in the place that they want to be. They're always wearing small smiles, I can't go with the style. Politicians in my eyes. Politicians in my eyes. Reaching out, shaking hands, making friends and
Politicians in My Eyes are by Death. I did notice on your website, great quote from Jack White of, the White Stripes, of course. The first time the stereo played Politicians in My Eyes, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. When I was told the history of the band, what year they recorded this music, it didn't make sense. Ahead of punk and ahead of their time. Now, obviously, praise from Jack White is high praise indeed. You've had massive praise from a lot of, as you say, like rock musicians, journalists, historians. Who's come out and talked about you that has meant the most, and who's been the most surprising?
Well, Jack White was definitely, him being a Detroit brother too, that really meant a lot to us. Kid Rock, that meant a lot to us. Some of the people who really, I think that really surprised us was, Elijah Wood, and
Alice Cooper.
Alice Cooper, yeah,
who was the first person I ever saw rock out on the rock and roll stage.
Yeah. So it's the accolades that come in is really, we really appreciate that, and the only regret that we have is that David couldn't hear all of this, because right. Then again, we always say maybe he is, we don't, David's always been that kind of a spirit, but it's really it's not only flattering, but it's just really nice to hear that your work gets appreciated even after all these years.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your comeback, should we say? So you kind of you came up to Vermont in the 80s. You started a new band, I believe called the Fourth Movement.
Yeah.
And you kind of pivoted away from your punk origins, even if you wasn't called punk at the time, and by and large, kind of had a small band up in Vermont for many years, but didn't really raise a roof in the same way as you do now. Mm-hmm. So how did you get rediscovered, if you will, and what did that end up leading to?
Wow, just like I said, the discovery was these record collectors and these wonderful people who seek after the vinyl of old gems, and we didn't really know what was happening. And what really kind of opened my eyes when I got a call from my son in San Francisco, Julian, who had went out there for a while, and he asked me if I knew that they were playing my music at these underground raves. And I thought he was talking about lamb's bread, and he said, "No, Dad." He said, "You were in a rock band in the '70s called Death." And when he said that, and then he said "Politicians in My Eyes and Keep on Knocking." When he just said "Death, Politicians in My Eyes and Keep on Knocking," I knew exactly what he was talking about, and my jaw dropped because, if you've seen the documentary, we never really. Because of all the rejection and everything, and maybe just because of that, we just wanted to move on. We never really enlightened our kids about what was going on when we did this stuff in the 70s in Detroit. They always knew us as reggae stars. So they always knew us. They had seen the big festivals and us hanging out with Yellow Man and Ziggy Marley and, and all these other reggae stars. So to them, we were like these reggae stars, and so we kind of wanted to keep the shine in their eye. We didn't want to really tell them about the fact that we were in a rock band and nobody in the world wanted to listen to us but us, practically. And so to them, it was pretty surprising and it was amazing, and They just, that's how they found out about it, and that call was real interesting. If you see the movie, there's a part in there where my son Julian talks about it.
Yeah, and it must have felt, I can't talk for how you were feeling at that moment, but were you proud that your son was kind of the catalyst for rediscovering your old band and kind of putting you back on this track, especially towards like punk legendary glory, if you will.
Well, you know, I'm glad that it was them who were in the group of people who discovered it, who were right there in the group of people who were right in the first part of it being discovered. And so it was good. It was really good for them, and very emotional for all of us.
Let's talk a little bit about that documentary. So you've got a re-showing of the documentary coming up on the let me see here, 19th of October.
Saturday the 19th at the East Center, which is the 3D Essex Cinema Center. They have basically a performance center set up there now, and we'll be performing right in the 3D cinema. They have a stage set up. They're also they're going to allow people to dance in the pit, man. So if you want to dance in the pit at the 3D cinema, so you could say, hey, I did some pit dancing there at the 3D cinema. Come on out Saturday, and it's going to be a rocking good time, man. We plan to really rock out. I mean, this is special for us because, you know, in the story, we moved from Detroit to Vermont in 1977. And, you know, that's when Death first came here. And, I mean, we literally came here with nothing but a dream. You know, we've been able to do some amazing things. My brother and I raise a family here. We have Bobby Duncan here, who basically it seemed like he was spiritually planted here with us, you know. I mean, where else could we find a great guitar player who's not only in our age group and looks like us, but knows and appreciates rock and roll, comes from New York, grew up in the same type of music era that we did, and Bobby, you can even elaborate a little bit on, you know.
Oh, well, yeah, well, this whole thing came about pretty amazingly as far as I'm concerned. You know, you were talking about how this all came about. Well, how it came about for me is about 14 years ago. I actually relocated to this state 15 years ago with my whole music career, studio, the whole 9 yards, up to Vermont. Family and things like that, and just plan to do producing thing up here as I'm still doing. But, you know, Bob and I met each other and we started doing Land Spread, you know, and that's all I knew them as, you know, just, you know, reggae musicians, and we get together and play reggae and some jazz and some R&B. Rock never crossed the boundary of the front door. And then one day, of course, as you were just mentioning, you know, the Death whole thing was rediscovered, and Bob presented it to me. And from that day on, like, things have changed, and we just decided to start doing the Death Project again. And it's been a very fortunate thing for all of us, you know. It's a blessing.
Did you guys discuss Death while you were doing the whole reggae Land Spread kind of thing, or was it like a surprise to you?
It was never mentioned. Not at all. Not at all.
Not a
I
word.
didn't think the Sons didn't know. I didn't. Of course, I didn't know. We have basically a schedule that we stick to, you know, as far as rehearsal, and that's like twice a week. And that's been since day one, you know, because we're professionals like that. We know how you have to do it. Okay, so we get to rehearsal one day, and this guy here has a different kind of look on his face, you know. His look kind of worried, you know. Come to find out, his brother himself had known about them being rediscovered for about, maybe a month and a half, and never peeped a word to me. And then when it came up to, we were doing, a gig came up in New York. It was Joey Ramone's birthday, I believe it was. And that was the first hit that we did as Death. And that's when you say, hey, listen, man, you know, he dropped the whole thing on me. I'd like, wow, what are you talking about? And he gave me all this music. And I flipped, actually. I was very fond of the whole album the first time I heard it. And I couldn't wait to get on. The first song that I loved was Prisoner. Never forget that, you know. But it's just been like a gas. I mean, these guys were incognito, undercover rock stars.
Right. Makes it so much cooler in a way, actually.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, cool is cool.
Yeah.
We've unfortunately not got a lot of time left, so quickly let's talk about your new album that's coming out. I've got pressings over here. We've got a couple of singles.
Well, you know, we have we have a whole, when you come to the theater, there's a little handout that they put together that's got all of our releases in the order of what they've released. I mean, we've now released, with Drag City Records, we've released 3 historic Death albums with the music that me, Dennis, and David originated from Detroit. that spans all the way from Detroit to our time our time when we was Death in Vermont. We have a new album that Dennis and myself and Bobby Duncan right here put together right here in Vermont, as a matter of fact, at Joe Egan's studio. We recorded this in oh my God, 2012, maybe 2013, and took a couple of years for it to bring to fruition. In Drag City, we released that on our own Triangle Records label through Drag City Records. It's really kind of a tribute to what we did in Detroit to keep the label of Triangle. And Drag City cooperated with us on that really good. And we have a great new project. We call it new because it just stands for, it's the Death New album, you know. And so, it's the newer stuff that we've been doing. And some of it is, some of the songs, fortunately, are from the Death songwriting archive from Detroit. So there's a few songs on there that David penned and David and myself penned, and we just we tried to give them the best justice we can by taking them into the studio and doing them exactly to the vision that we had back in the 70s.
It's so great that you've got that mixture of the old school Death and new school Death. I'd love to listen to a track of it. Have you got anything prepared for us? Ceasefire?
This is our newest one. This is one of our newest ones, our newest single. This song was written by Bobby Duncan, and this is kind of in response to what's been going on all over the country. I think that David would really appreciate that, because David always said that, with Death, our concept was that we wanted to say something. We just didn't want to be a band screaming and yelling rock and roll and on stage and while the whole world is on fire. And, we are tuned in to what's going on. And Bobby brought this song to us, and we thought it was great, especially, with, so many, it's a different culture now. When I was young, in the early 60s, this is how my mother would send me off to school. She would say, hey, you got lunch money? You got milk money? Hey, say hello to Principal so-and-so for me. Say hello to the teacher. Say hello, and I'll see you when you get back. Or maybe I'll see you at lunchtime. That's the way I went to school. I send my kids to school now, and I say, be aware of your surroundings, check the exits, make sure that everything is safe. If you see anything funny, So, it's a whole different culture now. And I think this song addresses that, and we just want the whole country to, to cease fire, man. It may be idiotic to say, America, put away your guns, because America was built on guns and will probably leave on guns. But at least the least we could do if we have guns is to just cease fire.
All right. Take it away. Unfortunately, we couldn't hear the whole track, but if you go to the gig on Saturday, obviously you can go pick up a track and listen. Yeah,
maybe we'll play the whole track for you.
The whole track. Give you a little snippet tonight, teasing the audience, and then you can listen to the whole thing live on Saturday. Guys, before I let you go, could you please plug away? What have you got coming up in the next few days? I know you've got a few more radio shows, and I've heard you've got a signing as well.
Well, you know, I mean, we got some interviews, and we'll be milling around town, and we'll be talking up with some television people, and of course we'll be getting ready for the show on Saturday. It's going to be a great. We're really looking forward to it. Once again, I said this is special to us because Vermont is connected to our story. I mean, you can draw a line from Detroit all the way to Burlington, and that's the death story. It just makes us feel good, and we appreciate living here in Vermont. David was the one who directed us here, and we didn't know exactly where we were going. As a matter of fact, if you've seen the movie, when they asked me if I like to go to New England, I was like, just a young kid at the time, and I'm like, New England, what they do with the old one, So, I thought we were going across the Atlantic or somewhere. But we just really appreciate the fact that we've been able to have such a wonderful musical legacy here, from Death to the Fourth Movement to Lamb's Bread to the present. And we just got a lot to share and a lot to come in the future. And we're going to keep on plugging away, man. Rock and roll. That's what David would say if he was here. That was his moniker, rock and roll. So,
well, I'd urge anyone listening to go and check out Death at, was it Essex 3D Cinema?
Essex 3D Cinema. They call it the Double E Center, but we'll be playing right in the Essex 3D Cinema.
And go rock out of the pit, and you can also meet the band themselves. You guys are doing a Q&A, and what we've talked about tonight doesn't even touch on a tenth of your story, and trust me, it's a story worth listening to. So guys, thank you so much for coming in. Everyone listening, go check them out on Saturday.
Well, thank you. And thank you to Big Heavy World, man. Keep Big Heavy World alive. Keep music alive. Let's bring back 242. Let's keep Vermont rocking.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in once again. Join us after the break where we have got Ali T coming up. So don't go anywhere. Thanks.
All right.